All right, back on Revolution. I'm your host, Jay Huger. Now we are joined by legendary Robert Greenwald, the founder of Brave New Films. They're a wonderful organization, constantly trying to do good in the world. Robert, welcome back to the show, brother.
Thank you, good to be with you.
Okay, so Robert, you're working on a number of projects as you always do. What do you got for us on Israel these days?
Well, as you well know, and very much appreciate what you're doing and the leading role you've been playing, what Israel has done in Gaza, tragically, they're now doing in Lebanon, they're now doing in so many different places where the lessons, the horrible lessons, and let's remember this, killing children, attacking hospitals, destroying homes. Lebanon, Iran, and Gaza. And as a New York Jew, I feel particular both pain and anger at what they're doing and how our tax dollars are paying for the murders, killing, and destruction of now 3 different countries.
Yeah, so far they've hit 338 hospitals and health facilities in Iran, both Israel and the United States. There have been 2,267 attacks on healthcare facilities in Gaza. I'm seeing a pattern here, Robert. In Lebanon, 77 health workers and patients have been killed and 177 injured. So why are they hitting the hospitals? I mean, because it feels like it's almost like they're trying to tell us we're the bad guys. You should definitely be against us. Like, is there any even strategic reason to bomb hospitals?
Well, if you want to destroy a country and you want to destroy the people in the country, you destroy the hospitals and you kill the children. And I hate saying that, but that is the reality of what they're doing. And I know there's a certain level of, I'll use the polite word, victimization among folks. But there's nothing that they could do, nothing that administration in Israel could do that would increase anti-Semitism any more than what they're doing, destroying hospitals and killing children. I mean, you've got children, Cenk. Just think about it for a minute, what that would do. And there are so many children in all 3 countries who've been killed. And what it does is it destroys the fabric of the country. It tries to destroy the future, and taking away the hospitals. We did a short video at Brave New Films. It's available online, where we show the hospital before and then the hospital afterwards. And it is infuriating and heartbreaking and goes to one of the core issues, which you've been a great asset with, Cenk, which is our documentary about Gaza, focusing on 3 journalists and showing that Israel, and they're doing it in the other countries now too, intentionally are murdering journalists. Then they're not allowing international journalists in. And then they're saying, oh, this was all Hamas. Cuts off and stops the independent voices who can investigate this. And we wind up with the official word being one of the few voices that we hear. Thank goodness for you and others in the independent media who are loud and clear, making it obvious and apparent that it truly is a picture or a video are worth 1,000 words or more. And the fact public opinion has changed so much, given the blackout, essentially, from legacy media, has been an extraordinary how quickly it's happened, how powerfully it's happened. And it's due to the courageous people in Gaza who sent us videos, who sent us photographs, and people like you who keep talking about this issue and will not let us turn away.
So tell the audience one thing. You got to go to bravenewfilms.org. So Robert's right. I've been talking about the short film they made about the 3 journalists that were killed. It's more heartbreaking. If you could, if you can sit through that and go, yeah, I think Israel's still doing the right thing, that is amazing. So it's about 41 minutes, it's super powerful. And the new movie is Gaza, Iran, Lebanon, One Playbook of Destruction. And so make sure you check that out too. But Robert, you touched on something there that's so important, right? So, you said you're a Jewish guy from New York, and so this is heartbreaking to see all this happen, right? And I know exactly what you're talking about because I grew up around Jewish folks just like you. So,
well, there's nobody just like me.
Well, that's fair. That's fair. So, in my experience, Jewish people have been nothing but lovely, right? And care about others, a huge part of the civil rights movement, et cetera, right? And then they come and they say, yeah, 63% of Jewish Americans are against the Netanyahu government, right? But everyone on TV makes it seem like, no, all Jews are in favor of what Israel's doing. And if you criticize what Israel's doing, it's anti-Semitic, right? So why do they keep saying that, including Jewish anchors? So it's like, do they think that they're helping Jewish people? Do they think they're helping Israel and hurting Jewish people, but they do it anyway? And this is an impossible question, but how do we get them to stop? And because I think you're absolutely right, they're driving anti-Semitism through the roof by pretending that all Jewish people are in favor of genocide. No, they're not. In fact, the great majority aren't. And so I know it's an impossible question, but what do we do with that, Robert?
Well, I think what we do is what you and other independent media and what we're trying to do, which is keep telling the stories. And ultimately, maybe this is naive, even though I'm a hard-bitten New Yorker, the truth will win out. And we have seen an extraordinary shift in the shortest period of time ever around people's opinion of Israel, around their opinions on Palestine. I think what we're seeing on television is sadly and horribly a result of corporate media, consolidation, the Ellisons, Barry Weiss controlling CBS, controlling the outlets, but they're less and less and less important. Now, one of the challenges, and I don't know if you all have had it, we're finding some of our work being suppressed on the streamers, which is, and particularly around Gaza and particularly around our immigration work. And we can see it. You can see the numbers radically drop, and you can see it from platform to platform, depending on the policy decisions that are being made by the owners of the streamers, the policy decisions that are being made and then fed to the algorithm. So certain subject matter gets radically suppressed. Sometimes they'll out and out block you, but they're so evilly clever because when the algorithm takes you down, you don't know it right away until suddenly you say, wait a minute, what happened to the thousands of people? That's a battle that we're also, and many others, are going to be engaged in for a significant period of time. And again, people like you, the young Turks, and others who are fighting this fight, we've got a hell of a battle ahead of us. But I think we have seen really extraordinary progress. If you don't look at the national networks, we've seen extraordinary progress on this issue.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've moved the American people in a way that is unprecedented, right? And we have not moved our government or our media 1 inch. So,
well, some media. We haven't moved legacy media.
Legacy media, that's right. That's right.
You guys and many others are doing courageous work.
So last couple of things here, Robert, real quick. So look, we all have to do our part, right? So for example, I challenged Turkish leaders to recognize the Armenian genocide, right? So just because your people did it doesn't mean that it didn't happen or that it's some sort of racist attack against Turks or whatever. No, fascism is a thing that moves across the world. It's been in Germany, it's been in Turkey, it's been in Serbia. Unfortunately, I think it's in Israel now. And we've got to challenge our own leaders. Otherwise, how do they know that you're dissatisfied, et cetera? But Robert, along those lines, it feels like, again, the Jewish culture that I grew up around was question the rabbi, right? And care deeply about education, care about finding out what's true and what's not true, and go through that process, right? The Israeli culture now, ironically, feels like the exact opposite. Don't question Israel. You're not allowed to question anything. You're not allowed to question the powerful. You're not allowed to question the government, etc. So what happened here? Did we lose Israeli culture? And is there any way of getting it back?
Well, I wish I could give a simple, quick, and accurate answer to that. One of the factors, and this may be a little too complicated longer term, some of it really is a result of trauma. And, there's been a lot of literature about trauma. Different people respond to it in different ways. Sadly, the government in Israel, the currently elected government, has used some of the legitimate, horrible trauma of the original Holocaust. They've used some of the trauma of the Hamas attack, and they've manipulated that, and they've turned that into a war cry. We need to resist that. We need to show alternative ways. And there is, by the way, it's not as large as we'd like it. There's a significant increase in the number of people in Israel who are marching, who are resisting, and know that the current government's main goal, primary goal, not so different from some folks here, is getting reelected. And to do that, they're cutting off differences, they're cutting off advocacy, and they're cutting off opposition. I hope that will change. I think what we all can do, Cenk, that we have a real role. If we stopped our tax dollars from spending billions and billions and billions, the policy would change, the murdering would change, the killing of children would change, and it would be almost instant. So we have a job to do. Cut off the money that is feeding the war and the hatred and the murders.
I love it. I'm way past time, but I'm gotta ask you about your ICE movies and projects as well. So real quick, tell us about what you're doing about ICE.
What we're doing is telling two kinds of stories. We're telling stories that no one is safe. So we've done a short film on the fact of people with disabilities being attacked by ICE. Last night, we premiered a short film about the car wash workers, 350 car wash workers in Los Angeles, attacked, brutalized, beaten, and we have some of their personal stories. The idea being no one is safe, therefore you're not safe. And the next phase of that work, thanks to the graciousness of some foundations, is going to focus on resistance. What can you do? And how it's being done, from the whistleblowers to keeping the ICE guys awake at night, to blocking them from going into people's homes. There's a lot of resistance. There's civil disobedience, and there's breaking laws. Breaking laws has a long positive tradition. We need all of that to stop the bullying, to stop the thugs, and frankly, to take on billions and billions of dollars have been allocated for the worst kind of abuse and bullying that we've seen in our country in a long time.
Yeah, I saw that video as well, and it's harrowing. They, smashing older people to the ground and just over the top violence by masked thugs. This is in America, okay? We've got to go to our better angels. So check out all the great videos and movies on bravenewfilms.org. They're doing God's work, and I keep using these religious references, but really, Robert Greenwald, as close to an angel as you'll find. So thank you, brother. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Cenk.
Okay. All right, guys, we're gonna get Rami Elghandour on next. He's Egyptian American. Was gonna give a speech at Rutgers engineering graduation. He's actually one of the most successful alumni of Rutgers. And they said, no, you're not allowed. You put up some social media posts that were pro-Palestinian and apparently and they said, as you'll see in the interview in a minute, some students were offended. Okay, what if students were offended that someone is in favor of Jewish people? Would you ban them? Oh, you're in favor of Jewish people. Well, I'm offended by that, you're banned. Of course not, that's insanity, right? But when it comes to Palestinians, our government and now our colleges say, no, you should never treat them as human. It's disgusting. So I have a lot of connections to Rutgers. I grew up next to Rutgers, so care a lot about this story. He's going to join us in a second. So I'm going to read a couple comments real quick here as we're in the middle of that. Octo Squiddies wrote in, the ADL is anti-Semitic. Well, yes, by their own definition, they are anti-Semitic. They say that if you equate Jews with Israel, that's an anti-Semitic thing to do. Well, that's what the ADL does every single day. And Scott Esther wrote in, or Hester, love this show. It made me actually aware of what has been going on in this country since 2009. We appreciate that. That's a YouTube member. We appreciate all of our members. Hit the join button below on YouTube, or if you're watching anywhere else, tyt.com/join. Okay, speaking of joining, we've got our next guest joining us now. Joining me now is Rami Elghandour. He is a very successful businessman. He was going to give a graduation speech at Rutgers Engineering, which makes sense because he's their alumni and a very accomplished one. But all of a sudden, someone objected based on his views on Palestine. Fascinating. Rami, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Cenk. Excited to be here.
Yeah, no problem. So listen, a lot of folks have gone to Rutgers and achieved some degree of success. I'm proud of that because I lived about 5 minutes from Rutgers, including my nephew, Hassan Piker, who's also targeted by some folks in the Israel movement. So apparently if you're a Muslim American who went to Rutgers, watch out. So tell us first what you were invited to do and what you were planning to give a speech on.
Sure. First of all, I don't think you have to be Muslim American, because if you saw what happened with Professor Peterson in Michigan, it's anybody who has a different point of view apparently on this very narrow topic. So that's the challenge. So to answer your question, I was invited back in December to give the convocation address for the School of Engineering, as you mentioned, of which I am a graduate. I graduated from Rutgers Engineering in 2001 with a degree in electrical computer engineering. I've had a great relationship with the school. I consistently engage with students. That is why they invited me. In fact, last Tuesday, I had 60 students here at my company from Rutgers Road to Silicon Valley program. They were supposed to be here for only an hour. I think we went to about 2.5 hours, and the professors had to pull them out of the building because they were so engaged. And so I was invited in December. I actually did a fireside chat with the dean on campus late February, early March. And I can tell you at that fireside, of course, Palestine came up because it comes up everywhere with students, and no problems. And then I got a call last Thursday from the dean that I'm being disinvited because, quote, a few students felt, I want to say this as a direct quote, a few students felt my social media posts opposed their beliefs. So we're canceling people on beliefs now. That's where we are in America. So as you can imagine, I pushed back pretty strongly. This is unbelievable. And the dean in that conversation rethought it. He said, okay, I actually wasn't calling to tell you you can't speak. I was just telling you about that we have some complaints and let me work on it. Then he called me back on Saturday and gave me his final decision.
And the final decision was no. Your
final decision was no, you can't speak at your alma mater because you're anti-genocide. And look, I pushed back pretty hard there in a couple of different ways. I asked again, how many students are we talking about here? And he said a few. I said a few sounds like 5 to me. So you're saying there's a graduation. You told me this graduation was about 1,000 students and then thousands of family and friends. So you're talking about 4,000 or 5,000 people. And we're gonna alter that 2 weeks before the speech that I've been working on for months because of like 5 students.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what if other students, well, he said, well, because they're threatening to not attend graduation if you're the speaker. I said, okay, well, what if other students decide not to attend once you cancel my speech? And he said, quote unquote, it's fine. I said, it's fine. Like, why is that fine? What is wrong with those students? He said, well, we're not gonna have a speaker. So if he literally said this, which is kind of kind of telling. He said, well, if they don't want to come because we canceled your speech because of the First Amendment, then that's fine.
So I'm trying to keep up with this hilarious logic here. So if we cancel your speech, that's pro First Amendment. But if we don't cancel your speech, that could be a First Amendment problem. How in the world, right?
It's impossible.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know, Jane. Can I tell you? Let's do a little side diversion because it's one of my favorite things. So I'm an engineer. I have a lot of favorite physics principles, Schrodinger's cap being one of them. But my favorite non-physics principle. Are you familiar with Carlo Cipolla?
No.
He's an Italian economist, and he developed my favorite non-physics principle, which is called the fundamental laws of stupidity. Okay, the third law of stupidity is called the golden law of stupidity, which means that a stupid person is a person who harms other people while deriving no benefit and often harming themselves. So what you're struggling with here is that this action, besides being unconstitutional and un-American and morally depraved, is stupid. It is a fundamentally stupid action that hurt the school, is hurting the students, and is not clearly bringing any benefit to the persons, I'm going to say, who likely did it. So it's hurting themselves.
Yeah, I actually don't fully agree with that, Rami. Because first of all, I'm curious what your take on this is, but I don't think it was the students at all. I think they were using the students as human shields. That it was way more likely wealthy alumni and board members at Rutgers who said, you're absolutely right, it has nothing to do with religion. Muslim, Christian, and Jewish speakers have been canceled in graduation ceremonies across the country for daring to oppose Israel. So my guess is that Dean is a liar and that it has nothing to do with the 5 students. I mean, again, it's indisputable because if 5 students said, about a Jewish speaker, well, I don't want a Jew speaking. Would they be like, oh, okay, well, you know, these anti-Semitic kids don't want a Jewish guy speaking, so we'll cancel the Jewish guy? Of course, that wouldn't happen. That's insane. That wouldn't happen no, they're doing it because they think you're opposed to Israel. So that's my theory. Do you really think that it was the students? Or do you think that maybe it was powerful alumni who told the dean, basically, you're going to be fired unless you make sure this guy doesn't speak?
Honestly, I don't know. I can only go by the information provided to me. The only thing I can speculate is that I don't think the dean made the decision himself, because as someone who's built companies and worked in companies, like one big rule is don't surprise your boss. So I'm guessing whatever his complaints he received went up to the president of the university, and that person made the call. But I don't even have information for that. It wouldn't surprise me. I guess, you know, it's Occam's razor. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if some students complain. It wouldn't surprise me if they thought, you know, if they allowed this to happen, maybe there will be some noise or complaints. Then they maybe thought it would escalate to donors or outside forces. I don't know. But I can only go by what I have, which is the dean is the only person I spoke with. He told me he made the decision. I did say to him, I feel for you, because I'm sure this wasn't fully in your control, because I believe that the senior administrators, like President Holloway in the university, were involved. Beyond that, it's hard for me to speculate.
Yeah, I have a ton of experience in this, and supporters of Israel believe that if you cancel everyone who criticizes Israel, that they've won, and that that's such a wonderful thing. And in their crazed minds, they probably think that they're defeating anti-Semitism. No, and they threaten to fire anyone in their path. I would be shocked if that wasn't exactly what happened here. Whether they threaten to fire the president or the dean of the engineering school. There's 5 kids that are racist don't have that kind of power. I mean, imagine if there were 5 Serbian kids and they're like, oh, someone's going to talk about Bosnia and Kosovo and the genocide there. No, we're pro-genocide and it'll hurt our feelings. Don't let the speakers speak about the Serbian genocide. Would the Rutgers be like, oh, okay, because 5 students are pro-genocide, we're going to cancel the speaker? There's a 0% chance of that, 0. The only people that have enough power in this country to make that happen are Israel supporters.
Yeah, look, I think what we can agree on is that there's something called the Palestine exception, and the Center for Constitutional Rights started talking about that or coined it like 10 years ago. Like within our institutions, and this is consistent, like and it's not a religious thing, like you keep saying. I mean, there is more Christian supporters of Zionism in Israel than there are Jewish supporters of Zionism in Israel, and there are plenty of Jewish people that are not supportive of Israel. So, it is definitely not a religion thing. It is a political ideology thing. This particular political ideology has really, severely captured our institutions to the point where the example of Professor Peterson at Michigan, I think, is maybe the most egregious example, because you have a man who spoke about women, Jewish Americans, African Americans, and what he called pro-Palestine activists. Now, I want to expand that point before I make my major point. The reason he called them pro-Palestine and not some ethnic group is because the pro-Palestine movement is a human movement, and it is multicultural and multi-religious. It is comprised of a lot of people like Jewish Voices for Peace, like, if not now, like B'Tselem, the leading human rights organization in Israel, which calls this a genocide, right? So if you have that sort of plurality, right, in your camp, it is hard to define them as anything else. Building on that, though, he addressed those four groups. The president of the University of Michigan called out which group? We don't have to guess. Pro-Palestine. And what did she say? She said the comments were insensitive and hurtful. What does that mean? Does that mean my existence to this person is insensitive and hurtful because I'm not pro-Israel? It is insane, like the level of racism that is spewed on behalf of this tiny country. I remember you made this tweet that I thought was hilarious. Whatever it was, you compared the population of Israel to, I don't remember where.
Papua New Guinea.
Yeah, some tiny place. Like, why? If I was tweeting about Papua New Guinea, would I be giving this speech at Rutgers right now, Cenk?
Of course you would.
Right?
Of course.
Well, if Professor Peterson had said, hey, the pro-Papua New Guinea activists were really, doing great work, would he have gotten admonished by the president? Absolutely not. So we can't just keep pretending that everyone is getting canceled and fired and doxxed over this little country in the Middle East, which gives, like, a billionaire from their country gives one of our candidates a couple $100 million, and now they're annexing the West Bank, and they are constantly giving money to our politicians against disclosure that they're a foreign, what is the term I'm blanking on? Foreign agent. Yeah, they're not registered as a foreign agent, right? So, like, what are we talking about? Like, we're talking about free speech, American democracy, and basic human decency. Like, genocide is the worst crime imaginable in humanity. They have committed it by every measurable standard. Their own human rights organization, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, you name it, right? The United Nations. This is not disputable. So how are we still giving money to this tiny country that's committed genocide? And meanwhile, stagnant minimum wage, no healthcare, poor transit system, massive transformation in the economy because of AI. Like, we are not spending a dime on our own people, right? To fund this little country that has universal healthcare and is committing genocide. Like, what are we doing? And why are we not allowed to say this? I could say this, I could criticize the US government. I wouldn't have been canceled from this speech. I'm being canceled because I'm criticizing some tiny country in the Middle East.
Yeah, so all of it is ludicrous, ludicrous. So we keep saying it's not about religion. 63% of Jewish Americans are opposed to the Netanyahu government. Andy Levin, speaking of Michigan, was a Jewish representative who was AIPAC eliminated with spending $4 million against him because he said he was in favor of a two-state solution. Andy Levin says he's a Zionist that loves and wants to protect Israel, but that the Palestinians should also be free. They're like, how dare you treat the Palestinians as humans? We're going to spend $4 million and end your career, right? We just had Robert Greenwald on from Brave New Films. He talked about how he's Jewish kid who grew up in New York, and these are not our values. And he thinks it's basically anti-Semitic to say that Jewish people all have to be in favor of the genocide in Israel. That's a weirdly anti-Semitic position. And then they say to him, shut up. No, you have to support Israel. But wait a minute, what the hell's going on here? We're telling Jewish people that they can't speak out on behalf of other Jewish people? Like, this is an oppressive regime. I mean, Rami, my family came here for freedom. This doesn't look like freedom to me. It looks like occupation. So, but I want to ask you about your social media posts. So they claim that, that's what really hurt their feelings. So were you saying some wild, outrageous things on social media, or what were you saying?
I mean, I know I look super casual because I am a super casual person, but I happen to be running a biotech company that just got acquired for $8 billion. It's public, it was listed on the NASDAQ, the acquisition closed. Before that, I ran a different public company. So first of all, the general assertion that I'm just out there making like crazy claims is, I'm literally laughing as I say it. It's just laughable. Like, how have I maintained success? And I've got Jewish people on my board, on my management team, in the company. I've hired people even from Israel. I've worked with people from Israel. Like, how is it that I grew up in New Jersey. You don't think I have Jewish friends? Like, come on. Like this idea that, I'm just saying like crazy things is like, I can't say it without laughing. It's just laughable. So what Rutgers did is, I remember I had 2 conversations with the dean about this. In both conversations, I asked, can you share something? Can you tell me, what is it that people are saying? That first of all, I don't agree with this contention that someone should be canceled because someone didn't like their tweets. It's ridiculous. But just for my own education, what is it? Shared nothing. Rutgers' initial statement when the news broke was, we didn't look at the social media, we didn't comment on it. And then they got this insane backlash. And what did they do? They did what you were accusing them of. They lied, all right? They said, oh, we have one tweet. This guy's put out 50,000 tweets and we have one that we're gonna pin all of this on. And that tweet said 3 things. It said that Israel committed genocide, that they're running torture dungeons, and that they're training dogs to sexually assault Palestinians. Now, they called that tweet inflammatory. The fact that they're more upset about the tweet than the accusations of the tweet is the most racist, vile thing I've honestly ever experienced personally, okay? So first of all, we've established genocide is done. We're not talking about this anymore. Number 2, this reference to dungeons comes straight from B'Tselem. Again, the leading Israeli, not Jewish, Israeli human rights organization in the world. The third claim about the dogs, 2 parts. Number 1, anybody who follows this conflict knows that the Israelis weaponize dogs against Palestinians. One of the saddest stories I have ever experienced was them sicking a dog on a child with Down syndrome and allowing that dog to maul that child while the parents watched. Okay? So the idea that dogs are not being used for violence at large in this conflict is ridiculous. And the idea that there isn't sexual violence against Palestinians, which Israelis deny all the time, is also ridiculous. You can reference a UN report on that. Now, to this specific claim, I learned of this claim from who? From Shael Ben Ephraim, who is an Israeli analyst who said that he talked to guards at this facility that witnessed this particular depravity. Second, that he referenced that there are multiple human rights organizations that have commented on this. And third, there was actually victim testimony. So the idea that I'm just like making inflammatory things up, do you think I wanted to see something like this? That I want to talk about it, that I want to tweet about it? It is the most depraved thing I've ever seen in my life, right? And I'm, again, a public company CEO. I'm not out here like wasting my time, like making things up, all right? So like maybe you should have some human decency and care about the actual content of the tweet, or maybe how we live in a democracy, supposedly, Cenk, as you mentioned. So why don't you actually look at the tweet, look at the references, have a conversation with me about it and say, hey, like this bothered some people. Is this real? Like, what's the background? But to just do this, like, judge, jury, and executioner with no due process, no conversation, no fact checking, say you didn't look at anything and then lie and then come back and say you actually now are pointing to a singular tweet that happens to come from an Israeli source and an Israeli organizations and Israeli testimony. I mean, come on. This is the whole problem with this conversation, right? Like, one side, we have so many facts between the genocide, the abuse, the occupation, the inhumanity of it all. And then the other side could just like make things up. And they could just say anti-Semitism or my feelings are hurt. And everything just, gets shut down. So this is a dishonest conversation. It's false equivalence at the height of what false equivalence means. And it's just asinine that they would bring up a tweet, a singular tweet, and on top of it, again, ignore the humanity underneath it. Like, it just shows you that people who make decisions like this are frankly soulless. Like, if I read a tweet like that, I would be like, oh my God, this is the worst thing. Is it true? Let me actually verify that it's true. Not cancel someone and defame someone based on some nonsense because they can't do their jobs. Honestly, I know this has gone too long, but like, as a leader, this is just an affront, right? You have responsibility to these students on so many different levels that you've now created this ruckus because you can't do basic research and you're not adult enough to have a conversation with someone that you invited. Also, let's talk about the students because you didn't go there yet, but obviously this is a disservice to the vast majority of the students. But let's even talk about the students. Let's assume there are these 5 plus or minus students that complain. So what message are you sending to those students exactly? That you shouldn't listen to people with different points of view? And if you have the privilege, you can cancel them? Like, I've learned a lot of things from people I don't like Bill Clinton. He's a great speaker. Not a big fan of Bill Clinton, but boy, did I learn a couple of things about public speaking from Bill Clinton. Like, these kids could have listened to me talk. I've been pretty successful. Maybe they could have learned a couple of things I could use for whatever cause that they want to benefit, right? And then obviously everybody else, all these other students, the message is pretty clear to the rest of the students and to the rest of America. Don't you dare obey. Don't you dare stand up for human rights. Don't you dare care about another soul. Just put your head down, keep grinding, and don't you say anything that we don't like. And I refuse to live in a country where that's true. Might as well live in North Korea at this point, right? This is ridiculous.
Yeah, so last thing here, I gotta say a couple of things before I get to the question though, because you're absolutely right. We cover that same story about the dogs, and we got it from the Israeli press. That's because the American press won't cover stories that are critical of Israel, but the Israeli press does. And part of the reason is hard to call the Israeli press anti-Semitic. So it's harder to intimidate them and bully them, etc. So that story is absolutely true, and again covered by the Israeli human rights organizations as well, which do great work. And saying that, well, we're offended that you're reporting on the horrors of a genocide. Well, could German students have blocked speakers back in the 1940s by saying, well, if they're reporting on the concentration camps, that offends me as a German. I don't care that it's true, and I don't care that the concentration camps are happening. You've hurt my feelings, so I'm canceling anyone who's opposed to the Germans. It's absurd. It's absolutely outrageous. So, but I have a theory, and Rami, I don't want people to get all this wrong, right? Yeah, the powerful are against us, but we won over the great majority of the American people. They're now on our side, and a lot of organizations are beginning to be on our side. So Rutgers Union came out on behalf of Rami being able to speak. PEN America did. If you've got any other groups, let us know about that too. But so you're chairman and CEO of RSLX. We talked about that a little bit. But as I was looking at your bio, Rami, you're also executive producer of The Voice of Hind Rajab, right? It's a super powerful movie about what happened to the 6-year-old girl who was killed by the Israelis. I saw it, and I mean, it was as heartbreaking as it gets. Super powerful movie. My sense of it is that folks at the top, not the students, but powerful people that affect Rutgers president and dean, said, oh, this guy's spreading the message about what's wrong with Israel. Forget the tweets. It's the movie that really, really bothered them. And then that's why they targeted you. That's my theory. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, I can't speculate because I can only go by what I was told, But, that movie is, as you said, the only word I can say is devastating. And for those who haven't seen the movie, it's about the 6-year-old girl. They put 355 bullets through her car. They killed her entire family, and she had to sit there amongst the dead while she waited for rescue. The Israelis blocked that rescue mission for hours while this poor girl sat there. Then eventually, they allowed an ambulance to go through, killed the girl, killed the ambulance drivers. And the problem with that film, not the problem, but what's hard about it is that you actually get to hear the voice of this little girl the entire time. And it is devastating.
Yeah. As I've said about that, it's done by Watermelon Pictures, and Rami was the executive producer of it. If you can sit through that movie and still support what Israel is doing, okay, no problem. At least you're comfortable with the depravity and say, yeah, and you're signing up for the depravity. But don't tell me you're okay with it until you see the movie, right? And once anybody sees the movie, it doesn't matter where they're from, you can't support what they're doing. And that's why they've got to shut down any voice that would dare to support the Palestinians and care about 6-year-old girls getting killed. But Rami, I'm here to say thank you, brother, for all that you've done. Our audience appreciates it, we appreciate it. And the only way we're gonna win, and by we, I mean all people who care about morality and decency, is if brave people like you speak out. So thank you, brother.
Thank you, Cenk. Thanks for having me, and thanks for continuing to advocate for what we all believe in, free speech, and the America that we all believe can be great for all of us.
All right, thank you, man. And everybody, thanks for watching.